The auction hall on Nexus Station smelled like fear and desperation. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat on metal benches, watching as lives were bought and sold like cargo. Hyunwoo sat in the back row, his worn jacket pulled tight around his thin frame. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him that he had not eaten a real meal in 3 days. He checked his credit reader again. The small screen showed the same number it had shown for the past week, 423 credits. It was not enough to fix his ship. It was not enough to pay his docking fees. It was barely enough to buy food for another week. But Hyunwoo was not here to buy anything. He was here because the auction hall was warm and sitting here was free. The auctioneer, a tall blue alien with 6 arms, called out prices in a voice that echoed through the hall. Workers, fighters, and servants were sold one by one. Most buyers were wealthy merchants or military contractors. They bid without emotion, treating the people on the platform like equipment. Hyunwoo watched sadly as families were separated. He had seen this too many times. The galaxy was a harsh place for those who had nothing. Humans like him were at the bottom of the social order. They had no advanced technology, no powerful military, and no rich worlds. Most aliens saw them as weak and worthless. The heavy doors at the front of the hall opened. 2 small figures were pushed onto the platform. Hyunwoo sat up straight, his heart sinking. The creatures were children, no doubt about it. They looked like cats that walked on 2 legs with soft gray fur and large golden eyes. Their ears drooped with sadness and they held each other tightly. Next, we have 2 Velani younglings, the auctioneer announced. Ages 8 and 6 in standard years. Their parents died in a mining accident on Sector 7. The children are being sold to pay the family debt. The older child, a girl, whispered something in her native language to the smaller one. Her voice was gentle but scared. The little one started to cry, making soft mewing sounds that broke Hyunwoo's heart. "What are they good for?" shouted someone from the crowd. "Velani have natural empathy abilities," the auctioneer explained. "They can sense emotions and calm distressed beings. Very useful for medical work or entertainment. They are also small and can fit into tight spaces for mining or maintenance work." Hyunwoo felt sick. These were babies, not tools. The older girl looked out at the crowd with brave eyes, but he could see her shaking. She was trying to be strong for her little sister. The bidding started at 50 credits. Several buyers raised their hands. The price went up quickly, 100, 200, 300 credits. Hyunwoo watched the numbers climb, knowing there was nothing he could do. Then a massive figure stood up near the front. It was Thok, a Korthak warrior that everyone on the station knew and feared. The Korthak were huge, brutal aliens who cared only about power and profit. Thok owned several mining operations in the outer systems, and everyone knew how he treated his workers. 500 credits, Thok growled. His voice was deep and threatening. The other bidders fell silent. Nobody wanted to compete with Thok. The Korthak was known for his violent temper and his connections to criminal organizations. He always got what he wanted. "What do you plan to do with them?" asked another alien in the crowd. Thok smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The little ones will work in my asteroid mines. Small hands are good for getting into tight spaces. When they get older, they can serve other purposes." He laughed, and the sound made several people in the audience look away. Hyunwoo felt anger burning in his chest. He knew what Thok meant. The Velani children would be worked until they broke, and then they would be sold again for even worse fates. It was legal in this part of space, but that did not make it right. The older girl seemed to understand what was happening. She pulled her sister closer and looked directly at Thok. Her golden eyes showed no fear, only defiance. She whispered something to her sister, probably telling her to be brave. Going once at 500 credits, the auctioneer called out. Hyunwoo's hands clenched into fists. He thought about his own childhood on Earth, how his parents had worked hard to keep their family together during the food shortages. He remembered the stories his grandmother told him about humans helping each other through impossible times. Going twice. The little girl was crying harder now. The older one was singing softly in their language, a lullaby that sounded like music from a lost world. Other people in the auction hall were looking uncomfortable, but nobody spoke up. This was business, and everyone knew the rules. Hyunwoo looked at his credit reader again. 423 credits. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But as he watched the 2 small beings holding each other on the platform, something inside him made a decision that his brain knew was impossible. 800 credits. The words came out of his mouth before he could stop them. The entire auction hall turned to look at him. Whispers filled the air as aliens pointed at the poor human in the back row. Thok's face twisted with anger. "What did you say, human?" Hyunwoo stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, but his voice was steady. "I bid 800 credits." The auctioneer looked confused. "Sir, do you have proof of funds?" "We require verification before accepting bids of this size." Hyunwoo's heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. He had just bid money he did not have. But when he looked at the Villani children, he saw the older girl watching him with hope in her golden eyes. She had heard his bid and somehow understood that this human was trying to help them. "I need a moment to arrange payment," Hyunwoo said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Thok laughed loudly. "This is ridiculous. Humans are the poorest species in the galaxy. He probably does not have 80 credits, let alone 800. 1,000 credits, Hyunwoo called out, his voice getting stronger. The auction hall fell completely silent. Even the auctioneer looked shocked. Thok's laughter stopped and his face turned dark with rage. "You are making a mistake, human," Thok growled. "I do not like being embarrassed." Hyunwoo met the alien's angry stare. "And I do not like seeing children sold to monsters." Several aliens in the crowd gasped. Nobody talked to Thok like that and lived to tell about it. But Hyunwoo did not care anymore. He was tired of watching bad things happen while good people did nothing. The older Villani girl was staring at him with wide eyes. Using her natural empathy abilities, she could sense his emotions. She felt his determination, his compassion, and his willingness to sacrifice everything to help them. Tears ran down her furry cheeks, but now they were tears of hope instead of fear. "Sir," the auctioneer said firmly, "we need immediate verification of funds, or your bid will be cancelled." Hyunwoo nodded. "Give me 10 minutes. I will get your money." He walked toward the front of the hall, his mind racing. He had no idea how he would find 1,000 credits in 10 minutes. But as he passed the platform where the children waited, the older girl whispered something in broken human standard. "Thank you." Those 2 words gave him the strength he needed to keep going. Somehow he would find a way. He had to. Hyunwoo ran through the corridors of Nexus Station like his life depended on it. His worn boots slapped against the metal floor as he searched for someone, anyone who might help him. The auction would resume in less than 10 minutes, and he still had no idea where to find the money he had promised. Most of the businesses he passed were owned by aliens who barely tolerated humans. They would laugh at his request for a loan. The few human-owned shops were small and struggling, just like their owners. Nobody on this station had 1,000 credits to spare for a desperate fool. Then he remembered Soo-jin. She ran a shipping company from an office near the docking bays. Hyunwoo had done a few cargo runs for her in the past when she was desperate for pilots. She was one of the few humans who had managed to build a successful business on the station. If anyone might help him, it would be her. He found her office just as she was closing for the day. Soo-jin was a middle-aged woman with gray streaks in her black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much of the galaxy's cruelty. She looked up in surprise as Hyunwoo burst through her door. "Hyunwoo, what are you doing here?" "You look terrible." He was breathing hard and sweating. "Soo-jin, I need your help." "I need it badly." She gestured for him to sit down, but he was too nervous to stay still. He paced back and forth in front of her desk, trying to find the right words. "I just bid on something at the slave auction," he said finally. Soo-jin raised an eyebrow. "You bid on what?" "With what money?" "That is the problem. I do not have the money. But there are these 2 children, Villani sisters, and they were going to be sold to Thok. You know what he does to workers in his mines." Hyunwoo, slow down. "Start from the beginning." He told her everything. About the auction, about the frightened children holding each other, about Thok's cruel smile when he talked about using them. Soo-jin listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "So you bid 1,000 credits that you do not have," she said when he finished, "to save 2 alien children from a life of slavery. I know how it sounds. I know it is crazy, but I could not just sit there and watch it happen." Soo-jin was quiet for a long moment. She had been on Nexus Station for 15 years, building her business credit by credit. She had learned to be practical, to think with her head instead of her heart. The galaxy was full of sad stories, and you could not save everyone. But she also remembered her own early days on the station. She remembered what it felt like to be desperate and alone with no one willing to help. Other humans had saved her then. People who took risks they could not afford because it was the right thing to do. "What are you offering as collateral?" she asked. Hyunwoo's heart jumped. She was not saying no. "My ship. It is not much, but it is all I have. That old cargo hauler of yours? It is worth maybe 600 credits on a good day, and that is if the engines do not explode before someone can buy it. I know it is not enough, but I will work for you. I will take any cargo run, no matter how dangerous. I will work until the debt is paid. Even the runs to the war zones, the ones where half the pilots do not come back?" "Yes, anything." Sujin studied his face. She could see the desperation in his eyes, but also something else. A determination that reminded her why humans had earned respect in some parts of the galaxy. They might be poor and technologically behind, but they had something that many advanced species lacked: the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. "The children will be your responsibility completely," she said. "I am not running a charity. You will need to feed them, house them, take care of them, and you will still owe me 1,000 credits plus interest." "I understand. If you default on the debt, I keep your ship and you work for free until it is paid off. Could take years." "I understand." Sujin opened her desk drawer and pulled out a credit chip. She typed in her authorization code with steady fingers. "You have got 5 minutes to get back to that auction." Hyunwoo stared at the chip in amazement. "Sujin, I do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me yet. You just signed up for the hardest job of your life. Taking care of children is not easy, especially alien children with special needs. Are you sure you know what you are doing?" Hyunwoo thought about the older girl's brave eyes, about the way she had whispered "thank you," even though she was terrified. "No, but I have to try." He ran back to the auction hall as fast as he could. The corridors seemed longer now, and he could hear his heartbeat in his ears. When he finally reached the hall, the auctioneer was already speaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are resuming the auction. The human bidder has 3 minutes to provide proof of funds, or his bid will be cancelled and the younglings will go to the previous bidder." Thok was sitting in the front row with a smug smile on his face. He had been confident that the poor human would not be able to find the money. Several other aliens were laughing and making jokes about stupid humans who made promises they could not keep. Hyunwoo walked down the center aisle, holding the credit chip high so everyone could see it. The laughter stopped. Thok's smile disappeared. "Here is your proof of funds," Hyunwoo announced, handing the chip to the auctioneer. The blue alien inserted the chip into his scanner. The machine beeped and displayed a green light. "Payment verified. 1,000 credits." Thok stood up slowly, his massive frame towering over everyone nearby. His eyes burned with anger as he stared at Hyunwoo. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, human." "Maybe," Hyunwoo replied. "But at least I will be able to sleep at night." The auctioneer banged his gavel. "Sold to the human for 1,000 credits. Please collect your purchase from the holding area." Hyunwoo walked toward the platform where the Villani children waited. Other people in the auction hall were talking loudly, amazed that a human had outbid one of the most feared beings on the station. Some seemed impressed, while others thought he was insane. The older girl watched him approach with tears in her golden eyes. She had used her empathy abilities to sense his emotions during the entire ordeal. She felt his fear, his determination, and most importantly, his genuine desire to help them. He was not buying them as property. He was trying to save them. When Hyunwoo reached the platform, he knelt down so he would be at eye level with the children. The younger girl was still crying, but the older one stepped forward bravely. "My name is Nara," she said in careful human standard. "This is my sister Kira. Are you really going to help us?" Hyunwoo nodded. "My name is Hyunwoo, and yes, I am going to help you, both of you." "Why?" Nara asked. It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of a lifetime of disappointment. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. He could have given her many reasons. He could have talked about right and wrong, about justice and compassion. Instead, he gave her the simplest truth he could think of. "Because you needed help and I was there. That is what humans do." For the first time since the auction began, little Kira stopped crying. She looked up at this strange alien who had saved them from a terrible fate. Using her natural abilities, she projected a feeling of gratitude so strong that several beings in the nearby seats felt it too. As they left the auction hall together, Thok watched them go. His fists were clenched and his teeth were bared. He had been humiliated in front of hundreds of witnesses, and he would not forget it. The human had made an enemy today, one who would not give up easily. But Hyunwoo was not thinking about Thok anymore. He was thinking about the two small hands that now trusted him to keep them safe. He had no idea how he was going to take care of them, but he would figure it out. He had to. Hyunwoo's cargo ship was not designed for passengers, especially not children. The main compartment was barely large enough for one person to live in, filled with old equipment and spare parts that he could not afford to replace. The sleeping area was just a narrow bunk built into the wall, and the kitchen was nothing more than a food processor and a small storage unit. Nara and Kira stood in the doorway, looking around at what would be their new home. Their golden eyes took in every detail, the patches welded over hull breaches, the flickering lights that needed repair, the thin walls that did nothing to block the cold of space. "It is not much," Hyunwoo said, feeling embarrassed about the poor conditions, "but it is safe and it is ours." Nara nodded politely, but he could see the worry in her expression. Kira stayed close to her sister, still scared and confused by everything that had happened. Neither child had eaten anything since before the auction, and they both looked tired and weak. Hyunwoo opened his food storage and frowned. He had only basic human rations, the kind of processed meals that could keep a person alive but did not taste like much. He had no idea what Vellani children needed to eat, or if human food would even be safe for them. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Both girls nodded, but Nara spoke up carefully. "Vellani needs certain minerals in our food. Without them, we get very sick." "What kind of minerals?" "Calcium compounds and trace elements that come from our home world. The mining accident. Our world was destroyed. We do not know where to find proper food now." Hyunwoo felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He had saved the children from Thok, but now he was learning how complicated it would be to actually care for them. He accessed his ship's computer and searched for information about Vellani dietary needs. The results were not encouraging. Vellani children needed special supplements that cost more than Hyunwoo made in a month. Without them, the children would become weak and eventually die. He had rescued them from one terrible fate only to face another. "We will figure it out," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "For now, let me see what I can do." He gave them water and some plain crackers that should be safe for most species. The girls ate slowly, sharing everything equally even though they were both starving. Hyunwoo watched them take care of each other and felt his heart break a little more. While they ate, he sent a message to Dong-hyun, his oldest friend among the human pilots. Maybe Dong-hyun would have ideas about where to find Vellani supplements, or at least know someone who did. His friend's reply came back quickly. "Are you crazy? You can barely keep yourself alive and now you are trying to raise two alien kids? Send them to a proper adoption center." Hyunwoo stared at the message. He knew Dong-hyun was probably right. There were organizations that specialized in caring for orphaned alien children. They would have proper food, medical care, and education. It would be the logical choice. But when he looked at Nara and Kira huddled together on his small couch, he remembered Thok's cruel smile. He remembered how the auction crowd had treated them like objects to be bought and sold. How could he trust that an adoption center would be any better? "We stay together," he said out loud, as much to himself as to the children. Over the next few days, Hyunwoo learned just how difficult his new life would be. He started working for Sujin's shipping company, taking cargo runs to dangerous systems where other pilots refused to go. The pay was better, but the work was exhausting and risky. Between runs, he tried to make his ship more suitable for the children. He used his food money to buy colorful fabric from the station market, hanging it up to divide the main compartment and give the girls some privacy. He found old cushions and blankets to make their sleeping area more comfortable. Nara helped where she could, showing him how to prepare the human rations in ways that were easier for Vellani to digest. She was incredibly mature for her age, taking care of her sister and trying not to be a burden on their new guardian. But Hyunwoo could see the stress in her eyes. She was carrying too much responsibility for such a young child. Kira was having a harder time. She cried often, especially at night when she had bad dreams about the auction. Her empathic abilities made her sensitive to everyone's emotions, and the fear and sadness around the station affected her deeply. Hyunwoo would sit with her during the worst episodes, not knowing what to say, but trying to project calm feelings for her to sense. The biggest challenge came when Kira became seriously ill. She stopped eating and developed a fever that worried all of them. Nara explained that it was a condition that happened to young Villani when they did not get proper nutrition. Without the right minerals, Kira's body was starting to shut down. Hyunwoo rushed to the station's medical center, carrying Kira in his arms while Nara ran alongside. The alien doctor examined the little girl and confirmed what they already knew. She needed Villani supplements immediately, or she would die. The supplements cost 800 credits for a month's supply, the doctor explained. For a growing child, she will need them for several years at least. Hyunwoo felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke on him. He had spent everything he had to buy the children's freedom, only to discover that keeping them alive would cost even more. He looked down at Kira's pale face and made another impossible decision. Give her the supplements. I will find a way to pay. He sold everything of value that he owned, his spare parts, his emergency equipment, even his father's watch that had been his most treasured possession. It was enough to buy 1 month's supply of the medicine that would keep Kira alive. When he returned to the ship with the supplements, he found Nara sitting beside her sister's bed. The older girl looked up at him with tears in her eyes. You sold your things for us, she said. It was not a question. Her empathic abilities had let her sense his sacrifice. They were just things. Hyunwoo replied. You and Kira are much more important. As Kira began to recover, something changed in how the sisters saw their human guardian. They had been saved by many people in their short lives. Social workers, medical staff, temporary caregivers. But all of those people had been doing their jobs. Hyunwoo was different. He was sacrificing his own well-being for theirs, not because he had to, but because he chose to. Nara started teaching him words in the Villani language, sharing stories about their destroyed homeworld and their parents. She told him about Villani customs and traditions, cultural knowledge that was precious because so few of their people had survived. Our parents taught us that family is not just about blood, she said one evening as they shared a simple meal. Family is about the people who choose to love you even when it is hard. Hyunwoo smiled. Your parents were very wise. They would have liked you, Kira added in her small voice. She was feeling better now, and some of her natural cheerfulness was returning. But even as their bond grew stronger, danger was approaching. Thok had not forgotten his humiliation at the auction. He had spent weeks gathering information about the human who had embarrassed him. Now he knew about Hyunwoo's cargo runs, his financial struggles, and most importantly, how much he cared about the Villani children. The Korthak was planning his revenge, and he knew exactly how to hurt the human the most. Soon, Hyunwoo's decision to save 2 innocent children would put all 3 of them in terrible danger. Word was already spreading through the station's criminal underground. Thok was offering a large reward for information about the humans' whereabouts and travel schedules. Several mercenaries and bounty hunters were taking interest in the job. As Hyunwoo tucked the girls into their makeshift beds that night, he had no idea that tomorrow would bring the greatest challenge of his life. He only knew that he had found something worth fighting for, something that made all his struggles meaningful. Good night, Nara. Good night, Kira. Good night. Hyunwoo, they replied together. For the first time in years, Hyunwoo fell asleep feeling like he had a real family. The cargo run to Kepler 7 was supposed to be routine. Hyunwoo had made the journey 3 times before, delivering supplies to the mining colony on the planet's harsh surface. It was dangerous work. The system was known for pirate activity and severe weather, but it paid well enough to keep Nara and Kira fed and healthy. The girls had been living with him for 2 months now. Kira was growing stronger every day thanks to the proper supplements, and Nara had become his unofficial co-pilot, learning to read navigation charts and monitor the ship's systems. They were starting to feel like a real family. Jump coordinates locked in, Nara announced from the passenger seat. She was getting good at the technical language, though her accent made some words sound musical. Good job, Hyunwoo said, ruffling her fur gently. Remember, when we drop out of hyperspace, check all sensors immediately, Kira finished from her spot behind them. And watch for ships that should not be there. Hyunwoo smiled. Both girls were learning quickly. Maybe too quickly. They had been forced to grow up fast in a galaxy that was not kind to orphans. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 7. Immediately, warning alarms started blaring. 3 ships were approaching fast, their weapon systems already charging. These were not pirates looking for easy cargo. They were professional mercenaries, and they had been waiting for him. Hold on, Hyunwoo shouted, throwing the ship into a sharp turn. Laser fire streaked past their hull as he tried to reach the planet's atmosphere. If he could get to the surface, he might be able to lose them in the canyons and rock formations. But his old cargo hauler was no match for military-grade fighters. A direct hit to the engine compartment sent smoke pouring through the cabin. Another blast took out their navigation system. Hyunwoo fought to keep the ship under control as they plummeted toward the planet below. "Emergency landing," he yelled. "Grab your safety packs." The ship hit the rocky surface of Kepler-7 hard, skidding across loose stones before crashing into a boulder field. Hyunwoo was thrown forward, his head hitting the control panel. Blood ran down his face as he struggled to stay conscious. "Hyunwoo," Nara was shaking his shoulder. "We have to go. The bad ships are landing." He forced himself to move, grabbing the emergency supplies from under his seat. The ship's hull was cracked open in several places, and the air recycling system was making terrible grinding noises. They could not stay here. Kepler-7 was a desert planet with extreme temperatures and very little water. During the day, the heat could kill most species in hours. At night, the cold was just as deadly. The only safe places were underground caves or the deep canyons that provided some protection from the weather. "This way," Hyunwoo said, leading the girls away from the wreck. Behind them, they could hear the mercenary ships touching down. Rough voices shouted orders in several different languages. They ran across the broken landscape, jumping from rock to avoid leaving footprints in the sand. Nara helped her younger sister keep up, while Hyunwoo carried their emergency water and food supplies. His head wound was getting worse, but he ignored the pain. All that mattered was getting the children to safety. After an hour of hard running, they found a narrow canyon that offered some shelter. Hyunwoo used pieces of the ship's hull plating to create a simple lean-to shelter against one wall. It would not be comfortable, but it would protect them from the worst of the heat and cold. "Why are those people hunting us?" Kira asked. She was trying to be brave, but her voice shook with fear. Hyunwoo sat down heavily, feeling exhausted. "Someone wants you back. Someone who does not like being told no." Nara's eyes widened with understanding. "Thok, the big alien from the auction. Probably. He has a lot of money and a lot of anger. That is a dangerous combination." They spent the rest of the day hiding in the canyon while search parties flew overhead. The mercenaries had good equipment and professional training, but the planet's harsh environment worked against them too. The heat made their sensors less accurate, and the rocky terrain provided many places to hide. As night fell and the temperature dropped, Hyunwoo realized they had a bigger problem than just avoiding capture. Their emergency supplies would last maybe 3 days. After that, they would die of thirst even if the mercenaries never found them. But something amazing happened over the next 2 days. Hyunwoo discovered that humans had advantages he had never thought about before. While other species were highly adapted to their home environments, humans could survive almost anywhere with the right knowledge and tools. He used his belt knife to dig a solar still, collecting water from the morning dew. He found edible plants growing in the shaded parts of the canyon and showed the girls which rocks could be used to make sparks for fire. When their food ran out, he caught small desert creatures using traps made from wreckage and wire. The girls watched in amazement as their human guardian demonstrated skill after skill that he had learned on Earth. Building shelter, finding water, making tools. Humans had been doing these things for thousands of years before they ever reached the stars. "How do you know all this?" Nara asked as he showed her how to weave plant fibers into rope. "My grandfather taught me when I was young," Hyunwoo explained. "He said humans survive by learning to adapt. We are not the strongest or the smartest species, but we can live almost anywhere if we have to." Meanwhile, Nara's empathic abilities were helping them avoid the search parties. She could sense the emotions of the mercenaries from a distance, feeling their frustration and anger as they failed to find any trace of their targets. When the hunters got too close, she would warn Hyunwoo, and they would move to a new hiding spot. On the 3rd day, salvation came from an unexpected source. Young-soo, another human pilot who worked for Soo-jin, received Hyunwoo's emergency beacon signal. When Soo-jin learned what had happened, she organized a rescue mission with several other humans from the station. It was not a military operation. The rescue team consisted of cargo pilots, mechanics, and shop owners who had never been in a real fight. They were outnumbered and outgunned by the professional mercenaries, but they had something that made them dangerous: They were fighting to save one of their own. The battle was brief but intense. The mercenaries had expected to face a single desperate human with two alien children. Instead, they found themselves fighting a coordinated group of humans who attacked with surprising courage and determination. Hyunwoo heard the sound of weapon fire echoing through the canyons. He left the girls in their hiding place and climbed to a high point where he could see what was happening. In the distance, human ships were trading fire with the mercenary vessels. It was a rescue mission and his people had come for him. "Stay here," he told Nara and Kira. "No matter what happens, stay hidden until I come back for you." But as he started toward the battle, the girls followed him. Nara took her sister's hand and looked up at him with determined golden eyes. "We are family," she said simply. "Families stick together." The final confrontation came when Thok's mercenaries cornered them near the landing site where the rescue ships waited. Hyunwoo found himself face to face with a Korthak warrior who had been sent specifically to capture the Villani children. The alien was bigger, stronger, and better armed. But when he reached for Kira with his massive claws, something fierce and protective awakened in Hyunwoo. He thought about everything he had sacrificed for these children, every credit he had spent, every dangerous cargo run he had taken to keep them safe. He fought like a human defending his family, with a desperation and determination that surprised even himself. When the other humans saw their friend risking everything for two alien children, they fought harder too. The sight of this poor cargo pilot standing between a trained killer and two small innocents inspired them to acts of courage they never knew they possessed. In the end, it was not superior weapons or tactics that won the day. It was the simple human refusal to abandon someone who needed help. The mercenaries retreated, their leader wounded, and their mission failed. Thok would have to find another way to get his revenge. As they flew back to Nexus Station, Kira fell asleep in Hyunwoo's arms. Nara sat beside them, using her empathic abilities to project feelings of love and gratitude to everyone on the rescue ship. "Thank you," she whispered to Young-soo and the other pilots. "Thank you for saving our family." Young-soo smiled and patted her head gently. "That is what humans do, kid. We look out for each other." But even as they celebrated their escape, everyone knew this was not over. Thok was still out there, still angry and still dangerous. The next attack would be worse, and they might not be so lucky again. For now, though, they were safe. They were together, and they had learned something important about the power of human determination when it was fighting to protect something precious. The news of the rescue mission spread through Nexus Station like wildfire. A group of humans had risked their lives to save two alien children from professional mercenaries. It was the kind of story that people told in bars and trading posts across the sector, and each telling made it more dramatic. For the alien communities on the station, it was a revelation. They had always seen humans as weak and desperate, the newest species in the galaxy with nothing to offer but cheap labor. But this story showed something different. Humans who would sacrifice everything for others even when those others were not their own kind. Hyunwoo found himself treated like a celebrity wherever he went. Aliens who had never spoken to him before now nodded respectfully when they passed him in the corridors. Some even offered to help with supplies for the children or repairs for his damaged ship. But the biggest change came from Soo-jin. The rescue mission had cost her company a lot of money and resources. But when she saw how the other humans had rallied together, she realized she was part of something special. "I am canceling your debt," she told Hyunwoo as they sat in her office. "What you did was brave and stupid and completely human. The other pilots are talking about it constantly. It is good for morale." Hyunwoo stared at her in amazement. "Soo-jin, I cannot accept that. You took a huge risk lending me the money, and you took a bigger risk using it to save two children you barely knew. Besides," she smiled, "I have a better offer for you. I want to hire you as a permanent pilot with full benefits. Family benefits." The family benefits included medical care for Nara and Kira, proper housing allowances, and even educational funding. It was more than Hyunwoo had ever dreamed of when he first made that impossible bid at the auction. With steady income and real support, life began to improve dramatically for all three of them. They moved from the cramped cargo ship into a small but comfortable apartment near the human quarter of the station. For the first time in their lives, the girls had their own beds, their own space, and enough food to eat every day. Jinny, a human teacher who had been trying to establish a school for the station's children, heard about Nara and Kira's situation. She visited their new home and was amazed by how much the girls had learned during their time with Hyunwoo. They speak 3 languages fluently, she told him after testing their knowledge. And Nara has an incredible understanding of spaceship navigation and repair. Where did they learn all this? From watching me work, Hyunwoo said. And from each other. Filani children are natural learners. Jine's eyes lit up with excitement. This is perfect. I have been trying to convince the station authorities to fund an integrated school, one where human and alien children learn together. Nara and Kira could be our first students, and their success could prove that the program works. The school project became a symbol of the changing relationships on Nexus Station. Humans were no longer seen as just poor laborers who took whatever work they could find. They were becoming known for their compassion, their willingness to help others, and their ability to bring different species together. Nara flourished in the school environment. She was naturally gifted at languages and mathematics, and her empathic abilities made her an excellent mediator when other students had conflicts. Teachers from several species came to observe her classes, amazed by how she could sense when someone was confused or upset and help them without being asked. Kira was younger and more shy, but she had her own special talents. She loved to draw and paint, creating beautiful artwork that showed scenes from her destroyed homeworld, mixed with images of her new life on the station. Her pictures helped other beings understand what it felt like to lose everything and find hope again. But the most important changes were happening within their little family. Hyunwoo had never expected to be a father, especially not to alien children with complex emotional needs. Yet somehow he had learned to provide exactly what Nara and Kira needed: stability, unconditional love, and the knowledge that someone would always fight for them. The girls, in turn, had given him something he had not realized he was missing. For years he had lived day to day working just to survive, with no real purpose beyond keeping his ship running. Now he had a reason to build a future, to save money, to make long-term plans. 6 months after the rescue on Kepler 7, they received unexpected news. The Galactic Council had been investigating Thok's criminal activities, partly because of the attention brought by his attack on a human family. They had found evidence of illegal slavery operations, tax evasion, and connections to pirate organizations. Thok was arrested and his assets were frozen. His mining operations were shut down, and the workers he had been exploiting were freed. The Korthak who had terrorized so many people was finally facing justice, and it had started with one human's refusal to let him buy 2 children. He cannot hurt us anymore, Nara said when Hyunwoo told them the news. But instead of relief, she looked sad. What is wrong? He asked. I keep thinking about all the other children he hurt before we stopped him. If someone had stood up to him earlier, maybe they would have been saved too. Hyunwoo pulled both girls close to him. You cannot save everyone, Nara. But every person you do save makes the galaxy a little bit better. That is enough. The formal adoption ceremony took place 1 year after the auction. According to both human and Villani customs, the girls were now legally his daughters. Representatives from dozens of species attended the ceremony, turning it into a celebration of interspecies cooperation and understanding. During the ceremony, Nara was asked to speak about what family meant to her. She stood up in front of the crowd, her golden eyes bright with emotion. Family is not about what species you are or where you come from, she said in a clear, strong voice. Family is about the people who choose to love you when you have nothing to give back. Family is about someone who will spend their last credit to keep you safe, who will risk their life to protect you, who will never give up on you even when everyone else says it is impossible. She looked directly at Hyunwoo. Our father taught us that humans have a saying. Family is not always blood. It is the people in your life who want you in theirs. We are proud to be part of a human family. The crowd was silent for a moment, moved by the simple truth of her words. Then the applause began, starting with the other humans and spreading to every species in the room. Even aliens who had never liked humans before were clapping, recognizing something beautiful in this unlikely family. As the ceremony ended, people from many different worlds came forward to congratulate them. Some shared their own stories of kindness they had received from humans. Others talked about how the story of Hyunwoo and the girls had changed their opinions about what humans were capable of, but the most meaningful moment came when Kira used her empathic abilities to project her feelings to everyone in the room. For just a few seconds, every being present experienced the pure love and gratitude that she felt for her adoptive father and her sister. It was a gift that transcended language and species, a direct sharing of the emotions that had built their family. Later that evening, as they sat in their apartment looking at pictures from the ceremony, Kira asked the question that had started it all. Hyunwoo, why did you save us? You did not know us. We could not give you anything. Why did you give up everything for strangers? Hyunwoo thought about his answer carefully. He remembered that day in the auction hall, watching two frightened children hold each other while cruel beings decided their fate. He remembered the moment when he realized he could not just sit there and do nothing. Because you needed help and I was there, he said finally, and because sometimes the most important thing you can do is the thing that seems impossible. That is what humans do, girls. We do impossible things because they are right. Nara smiled and leaned against his shoulder. That is why we love being human too. Outside their window, Nexus Station continued its eternal dance around the stars. Ships came and went, carrying cargo and passengers to 1,000 different worlds. But in one small apartment, a family had been born from an act of impossible kindness, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from strength or wealth, but from the simple decision to help someone who needs it. The galaxy had learned something new about humans that day. They might be poor in credits and technology, but they were rich in something far more valuable. They had hearts big enough to love anyone who needed it, and courage enough to fight for those they called family. And in a universe that could be cold and cruel, that made all the difference.